Welcome to O-State Daily. Casey Porter here, joined by Chase Whitwiska as you bring you pregame coverage of the big game between Oklahoma State and Baylor. I say big game just because I think that's a habit. It's not actually a big game for anybody other than Oklahoma State and Baylor fans, because these are two programs that, quite frankly, they have not held up to expectations this year. Baylor had the disappointing year last year, just the 3 wins. Their offense was terrible. This year the offense has been better. Dave Aranda has gone back to calling the defense, and they are playing a lot better. Just 3-4, but coming off a big 52-point performance, 255 yards on the ground last week, Chase. So although Baylor has not been playing good the last couple years, their crowds haven't been into it at home. This will not be an easy task for OSU.
It won't, and I don't think there's going to be an easy task for the rest of the season, to be honest with you. It seems like the Big 12 is kind of flipped, in terms of who is projected to, be the top 3 or 4 teams. Like I said, I feel like that's completely flipped. I don't think anybody saw BYU, Texas Tech, some of those schools being as successful as they have been. It's been an interesting and a kind of a fun conference to watch. I think all of college football has been a lot of fun to watch this year, just because there's just been a lot of unexpected success. Indiana is another great example. They've come out of nowhere, and I kind of like it. But at the same time, as an Oklahoma State fan, I don't like it because for the past 5-10 years or whatever it's been, Oklahoma State's been one of the top teams in the country. This year, be honest with you, they're not very good. They're arguably one of the worst teams in the country in terms of Power 4. It's concerning and it kind of sucks, but altogether in terms of college football's been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and Baylor wins the 3 games last year. BYU doesn't make a bowl. They get to the 5 wins real fast, and they don't ever find that 6th win. Now they're on the brink of maybe making the playoffs if they keep. Obviously, not maybe. They will make the playoffs if they win the Big 12. But Iowa State has their years to where things aren't great here and there. So I hear some desperation from OSU fans, like, man, if we don't get this and that, we're going to fall behind where we can never catch up. It's never quite that desperate because the margins are so thin in college football that a lot of times you're just a player here away, or even a player here or 2 away to getting right back to where you want to be. So it's never as far away as it seems, and it's never, as good as it seems either. So I think Oklahoma State needs to just not panic and do as best they can down the stretch here.
No, I agree 100%. I think that, looking forward and honestly looking into next year, this year's kind of a bust, in my opinion. There's not a whole lot that matters at this point outside of getting guys ready for next year. So I think you're going to see, obviously you're going to see Alan Bowman at quarterback today. If they get up or get down by a lot, I wouldn't be shocked if you see the Smith kid, but at the same time, I kind of would be, because what I would like to see is the Smith kid start next week against Arizona State. Homecoming, it's going to be a cool environment. Homecoming is always a big deal at Oklahoma State. So I think there's still going to be a decent crowd. There's going to be a lot of people there. I think that's going to be a good opportunity for him to be in a comfortable and a loud environment that's behind him, as opposed to sending him on the road to the BYU or a Baylor or wherever into a more hostile environment, maybe getting him a little bit more comfortable. And just really seeing what he's got for the next 4 games. He retains the red shirt if he stays. Plays those 4 games, doesn't play any more than that. So he retains the red shirt. I think it'd be important to see how he performs, just to get a feel.
Totally agree with that. And hey, if I've kind of said this a couple of times, and don't take me wrong when I say this, but just kind of go with me here. If Mike Gundy were in a Star Wars world, he would be a Sith Lord, not a Jedi. Not because he's the dark side, but because he works in absolutes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's like, when he talks about, I say that because whenever I hear you talk there, he made the comment this week that the kids make the decisions on the red shirting like it's an absolute, like he's a Sith Lord, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that nowadays with the transfer portal if a kid says, screw you, coach, I'm not playing anymore, I'm taking my red shirt and I'm transferring, there's not a damn thing a college coach can do about that. I understand that element of it. But don't give me this crap that you don't have any influence over whether kids are redshirting or not. That is not an absolute whatsoever. And if it is, then as a coach, you need to get your crap together and do a better job on that aspect of it. That's where, am I being too harsh there?
No, I agree 100% because if I put myself in his perspective, I coach a college baseball team. When I think about what my roles are as a coach, advising is one of those roles.
Yeah, mentoring.
Yeah, and sure, leave the decision up to them. Absolutely, I'm all good with that. But what you need to do is have a sit down conversation and be like, listen, not only for the benefit of this program that we have going on here, but for the benefit of yourself, you need to retain your red shirt, whether you like it or not, because there's not going to be a whole lot of meaningful snaps that you're going to play for us this year. You have that conversation early. And then you get to this point in the season where you're down a quarterback, your other quarterback sucks. You're down two quarterbacks. I'm sorry, you're down two quarterbacks, your other quarterback sucks. So then you pull them into the office this week and say, listen, I think you can perform at this level. I think you can play at this level. I'm going to wait to put you in until next week so you can benefit yourself and also benefit us and retain your red shirt.
And not make your first action on the road against a hot team.
Right, exactly. And if I'm that kid, I'm like, okay, I appreciate it. I genuinely appreciate you looking out for me, and you have to look out for your program. I would completely understand that. So and I'm not saying that doesn't happen. He does talk. He does talk to the media in
Just
different ways.
Don't try to fill me full of that crap, man. I don't need that. I mean, I know better than that, Coach. Come on, man. Right? I mean, those kind of comments frustrate me because I know they're not true.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think we're stupid enough to really actually believe that, right?
No,
in totality, again, yes, are parts of it true. What I don't like about it too is, yes, so parts of it are true. So now you can't say that he's lying, right? Because he's not, because parts of it are true. But then large parts of it aren't true as well. So don't make it look like, hey, this is the way it is. Absolute. There's no other way around it. That frustrates me, because then there's a whole lot of fans that don't dive into it like we do, that just take that at face value. And it's just not right to me.
And a lot of other people don't have knowledge of how this whole thing works either. I think that him saying that in his mind, people know where college football is at now. If they're college football fans, players do make a lot of decisions because they make money. They make a lot of money, probably make more than I do. So maybe that's where he's coming from, because players do. I would say they have more influence on decisions that they make now than they did 5-10 years ago.
No question.
So maybe that's where he was going with that. Again, playing devil's advocate. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. I don't know what goes on in his office or whoever's office. I don't know, and frankly, I don't care.
Right. We're not entitled to know any of that kind of stuff.
Right, exactly. And that's not my place. I'm a fan. I mean, that's plain and simple. That's what I am. I'm a fan of Oklahoma State. I don't need to know what goes on in your office. I would like to know. That'd be nice to know. It'd be fun to know. But at the same time, it's not my business. My business is just to care about how you perform on Saturday. That's it.
Yeah. So, I mean, even in today's day and age, okay, so like everybody wants, despite what people think, everybody wants discipline. Everybody wants structure. Everybody hates it when there's no discipline, there's no structure, nobody knows what the hell's going on. Even in today's day and age where the student athletes have more say-so than ever, I promise you they still want that structure. Yeah. Okay, so they are going to want a coach to take the bull by the horn and say, okay, guys, here's what we're doing. All right, this is plan A, plan B, plan C, both for a team and as an individual. So I walk in and I say, Chase, this is how you have to handle it. Chase, this is what we're going to do with you. This is our plan for you. Okay, this is what we're doing. And then as a coach, I'm going to put the onus on you to then have to say, no, coach, I don't think so. I don't think I agree with that. I'm not just going to leave it up to you and say, hey, what do you want to do? I'm going to tell you what we're going to do, and I'm going to have to put the onus on you to buck that and say, no, that's not what I want to do, Coach. That's how I'm handling that situation.
I'm in total agreement with you. And I think that's at any level. That's from when I'm 6 years old and playing Little League football all the way and until you play in the NFL. I mean, those conversations have to happen. And yes, you come up with a plan and I'll talk to my pitchers and say, hey, this is how we're going to use you. If you don't like it, then let's talk about it. But this, with what I've seen, with what we're going through as a program, all that stuff, I think, I think that is how you handle it. You let the kid still make the decision, and you force him to say, I disagree. And if he doesn't say that, then you roll with it, and if they have a problem with it and they don't have enough guts to say something to you, then that's their problem. That's not your problem. Because
you don't want that kind of, to me, that's not a person you put in your foxhole anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
You want somebody to stand up. That's why you and I get along so well. Because you have no problem standing up to me and I have no problem standing up to you, right? Exactly. I would have you in my foxhole.
Yeah.
Because you're going to tell me good or bad whether I'm doing right by a kid or not, right?
Right, absolutely.
That's the best situation to be. So, hey, just kind of some opening thoughts on some of the players that Oklahoma State have. I'll tell you what, this is how I enter this week. You go through the frustration of losing, and you kind of start angry. You want to start firing people, which is understandable. And you get into this, well, we got to find reasons. Somebody has to be the reason, or something that we can fix next week has to be the reason for us losing. And then as you kind of gradually go on, you start peeling back that onion, and you're like, well, damn, yeah, it's not necessarily one specific person. It's not necessarily one specific scheme. It's just, I don't know, it's a whole bunch of things. And then you kind of get to where Oklahoma State's at right now, and you're just like, I'm just not sure we're very good physically at all right now. Physically, the offensive line's beat up. Our running back room's beat up. Our quarterback room's beat up. Our defense is devastated on the injury front. So I've kind of gone from the stages of, man, we got to get better scheming. We've got to be more creative, which I still think we need to continue doing that. But I've kind of graduated to the stage of not really any anger, just kind of resignation that just physically, from a talent, physical perspective, what we can put on the field right now, I just don't think we're very good right now.
I agree. I'm looking at, we've got comments here, which we appreciate. He said Bowman didn't suck last game. No, he didn't. But he sucked every game prior to that. So that's where I'm coming from. Then we had another comment that says, I don't think it's a QB problem. I think it's an OC problem, which I partially agree with, but I also think it's a quarterback problem. We
know that.
Even with bad schematics, you've got
to. But the problem with your stance, I'll say this on a live show. The problem with your stance is that you don't also give him credit. So it's harder to take your stance seriously on that issue because it's all criticism with Alan Bowman. That's my problem with your stance.
Yeah, no, and my thing is I don't think he did. I'm going to openly say it, and you know how I feel about him.
Sure, absolutely.
He did not play bad against BYU. He had a bad pass.
No, he played great. No, he played a lot better than that. That's the problem.
Right.
You have to admit, other than the one interception that was tipped, which that happens if you play quarterback, you get tipped interceptions. He played great. He put the team in a position where they should have won the game.
No, I'm not going to disagree with that whatsoever because he was one of the reasons that we competed in that game. But I also think he's I'm saying partially because part of it is horrible schematics, but he is partially another reason that we've lost several games, in my opinion. I
get it, but when you can't run the ball and then you're getting pressured and you're asked to throw the ball down the field to the sideline with no running game into pressured coverages. I mean, I get you. Yeah, I mean, I think quarterbacks at places like Oklahoma State, they take on criticisms. It just is what it is that a lot of times aren't their fault. But I don't think he's been great, but I don't think it's been as bad as Oklahoma State fans think.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Like I said, I'm not taking any blame off of Casey Dunn, and I'm also not putting full blame on Alan Bowman. I think it's just a bad combination of two of two bad things, in my opinion, because I have high expectations for any quarterback that plays at Oklahoma State, because that is a nationally known brand and a nationally known it's a nationally known team, as it should be. With that, you have to have good performance, especially at the quarterback position. That comes with playing that position.
But have you seen Garrett Rangel play in this scheme?
He looked great. I
mean, the other night, but until the other night. So did Alan Bowman. Alan Bowman looked great the other night too.
Right.
Well, but until the other night, did you see Garrett Rangel play in this scheme?
Yeah, he looked like crap.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, but you say Garrett Rangel looked great Friday. What's the difference? What's the difference with Alan Bowman, right?
But Alan Bowman looked great on Friday because the scheme was better.
Alan Bowman had a really nice year last year. You know why? Because we were able to run the ball, and because of that, we were able to play action the ball, and he was able to throw it to cleaner windows with cleaner pockets. Yeah. It all works together, right?
No, 100%. 100%.
This is fun, by the way. Chase and I do this all the time.
Some of it gets edited out, so you don't get to see all this. But no, I'm not disagreeing. I'm not. I just think that it like I said, it's been a combination of two bad things. It's been a bad scheme and it's been bad quarterback play. But if you have a good scheme, most of the time you're probably going to get at least decent quarterback play. Yes. Unless he just sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, so
I think with the comment here nails it by wet blanket. I think what Alan Bowman was always supposed to be was a game manager. Yeah. He wasn't supposed to be the playmaker at quarterback, right? So when you lose your run game, now your quarterback actually has to be the central focus of your offense. He has to become the playmaker, and that's just not what he ever was supposed to be. I think that's unfair to him because that's just not who he is. So whenever you put him in just that the term here is the serviceable, I'll use the term game manager type role like he was in last year for the most part, I think that's whenever he's at its best. Whereas I think a Garrett Rangel, I think probably a Zane Flores, although I've never seen him, Malalake Smith, I have talked to several people from Junipero Serra, where he came from. Like I said, I know some people in the Dodgers organization that played there. Coach Walsh there, the head coach. I don't know him personally, but I know people around that area. I can tell you he could be the central focus of your offense. So I do think you have three quarterbacks on campus that could then pivot and be the central focus of your offense, like a Spencer Sanders was. But I just don't think that's who Alan Bowman is, and I don't think it's been fair to have to put him in that role and criticize him because of that, to a certain extent.
Right, and to me, this is all personal opinion, I think that they did a poor job of going and finding a quarterback that Alan Bowman does not fit this scheme of this offense and what it has been. If he does not compare to Spencer Sanders, because Spencer Sanders was a playmaker. He also screwed some stuff.
So was Mason and Corndog. Yeah.
He also and
Shelf.
They all screwed some things up, but they were all able to make up for it. What Spencer Sanders was able to do it with his legs. A lot of the time, he saved our butt many times, scrambling, making things happen. Bowman can't do that. So I don't think you've had a game manager at quarterback in a long time here. So I think that's, especially myself, I think that's why I have a hard time not putting blame on him. Reflecting on it, the recruiting side of things, they've got to do better at that. He's never a guy that should have come to Oklahoma State and played quarterback, because I don't think. Like I said,
he was in a three-way battle with a guy that's at Emporia State right now. So I don't think Oklahoma State ever even had any intentions whatsoever of him coming here and being the quarterback, right? I mean,
right. No, and I see, but then why go get him?
Well, as insurance in case your young guys go down. And exactly what happened last year. At least you have a veteran guy that knows how college football works, that at the very least you can stabilize things with. And that's exactly what happened last year.
Yeah.
He just needed not to come back this year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If he just would have not got the seventh year, we wouldn't be having this conversation, I think.
I'm not going to lie. I was really upset and really disappointed when he came out and announced that he was coming back. Some people were, some people weren't. I was one of the people that was not super excited about it because I didn't.
That's a good way to put it. Not super excited about it. Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to get any better than it did last year.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I agree.
It wasn't going to get any better.
That is very fair.
And he was serviceable last year. This year, I feel like he's been a little bit of a liability. Yeah. You know, in some case scenarios,
he's a liability as a playmaker.
Right. Take BYU. BYU is out of the question. Don't focus on that game, but focus on the other 5 games or 6 games that they had before that. You know, I think he's been. You know, he comes out at quarterback, and you're just like, oh gosh. You know, like this is what we've got. Like, you know, are you kidding me? Sure.
So let me ask you this: the BYU game plan, was that game plan a game plan to make your quarterback a playmaker, or was that a game plan to make your quarterback serviceable, a game manager? They had nothing
to lose in that game, so I think that they just let the quarterback kind of play free.
Yes, and then how did Alan Bowen play in that scenario?
He played better. Yes. He did play better. And you know, I don't know what BYU study. You know, there's so many things that go into it. They could have spent their entire week preparing for Oklahoma State, preparing for Rangel. Yeah. Sure. They you know, and that may have made Bowman look a little bit better. Maybe not. Again, I have no idea. I'm not going to take away from what he did in Provo because it was impressive. I mean, he played well. Do I have high hopes and high expectations for him to do that today in Waco? No. If he does, great. If he doesn't, no, I'm not going to be shocked. You know, it's not going to burst my bubble. What will burst my bubble is if he starts against Arizona State. That's what will upset me, because I really don't feel like you have anything to play for to this point. You know, I think a bowl game is completely overrated. I don't think it matters unless you're in the 12-team playoff. Yeah. But how many more practices do you get? You maybe get like a week and a half, because one of the bowl games that they're going to be in is going to be a crap bowl game
earlier.
That nobody wants to watch. It's going to be on a Wednesday night in New York, and they're going to start at 10 p.m. You know, like
there'll be people that want to watch. You know who they are?
Yeah, well, I'll be watching. I mean,
there may be a certain percentage of Oklahoma State fans, but gamblers.
Yeah.
Gamblers will watch those bowl games. People are like, why won't those bowl games just go away? I don't know, man. There's a lot of gambling going on in those games.
And if any gambler is watching that game, I advise you do not put your money on Oklahoma State. And I don't mean that in any other way outside of you may end up disappointed, and you may end up really lucky. It's about a 50-50 chance.
Hey, great conversation, Chase. That is an absolute great conversation. I'll say this though too, I don't disagree whatsoever on the red shirt. Hey, turn it over to Malalake Smith, or whatever. We saw it last week with Garrett Rangel. Okay, I think there's also an element of health here for a true freshman whose body is not. I mean, his body's not used to college football, and so I think there's also a certain pacing guide that you need to use with this guy too. And I think you ask, well, why would you have an Alan Bowman? I think he's the perfect type of guy that can allow you to pace Malalake Smith to where if you are planning on playing him the last 4 games, then maybe you can do it in a way to where he has some insurance with Alan Bowman behind him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that what Smith needs to do is kind of learn from what happened with Rangel in terms of, don't fight for extra yardage. Don't try to do too much. Just kind of let the game come to you. Because I think that's what Rangel did in the BYU game. Is he kind of just let the game happen. Sure. He let things happen. He didn't press. He didn't do anything. He just played football, and he kind of played free. Because like I said, I think everybody in the locker room knows that they've got nothing to lose at this point.
They have nothing to lose. Yeah,
absolutely nothing to lose. So I mean, why go out and try to do too much?
Yeah. So we have a comment here. We have some great comments from Wes that the Oklahoma State needed more than just a serviceable quarterback for all the talent they had returning. Would you agree with that?
I would. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I think we could, on both sides of it, pro Alan Bowman, anti Alan Bowman. There's 2 different sides to this with Oklahoma State fans. But I think both sides could come and meet in the middle with exactly what Wes just said right there. I think just the serviceable type quarterback, which is what Alan Bowman should be asked to be, is not what fit this team this year.
Right. I think you add one more playmaker to this team.
Yes.
You're 7-0 right now. Mm-hmm. You're 7 or 8-0, or how many games they played. I forgot how many games they played. I think they played 7. I truly think you're 7-0 right now, and you maybe been in a dogfight a couple times, but I think that you'd have come out on top. Teams, if you look at the game plan from game 1 against South Dakota State to all the way through BYU, I'll take out BYU because Rangel started. All the defense did was say, stop Ollie Gordon. That's it. Because they were like, if Alan Bowman beats us, then so be it. Because if I'm a defensive coordinator on the other side and I see Alan Bowman at quarterback and I see right next to him as a Doak Walker Award winner, that's my focus. Mm-hmm. If I see Alan Bowman at quarterback, I'm going to absolutely force him to beat us. He has to beat us because Ollie is not going to beat us. I promise you, because that's my key. That's my focus. So I think that's what's been the whole game plan going into each game from game 1 to game 6. Does that make sense?
Yeah, agreed. Hey, we have seen in the past great games from Casey Dunn, coordinated. So it's crazy to me that you can get these great – I mean, last week was not a good offensive coordinated game. Last week was as good as it gets as far as offensive coordination. I mean, your trick plays, not only were they timed up perfectly, they were set up perfectly. You know, you put in a few new wrinkles that weren't trick plays, like Coach Rainwater mentioned, with the unbalance, but then you also ran the zone away off of it. And then the underscreen to Brennan Presley was a perfect call. You played fast when you needed to. You played slow when you needed to. You figured out how to make two different quarterbacks effective basically under the same scheme. You kept the sticks moving enough, right? So to see a game like that wasn't good, it was great, okay? Everybody be able to convince me that last week's coordination offensively wasn't great. And then you see all the other duds, you're just like, what in the hell, man? I mean, why? I mean, what are we doing? I mean, why can't we have at least an attempt at what we had last week every week? It's just weird, isn't it?
I think that's why he needs to be gone. It's too inconsistent. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to how you could have a game like you had against BYU, but then you have 6 games like you had the whole rest of the 2024 season. I don't understand the whole concept of, oh, this works, so I'm not going to go back to it because they've already seen it. I've never understood that. I'll go back to when I was playing Little League football and my dad was our head coach and the offensive coordinator. I can tell you that play number 7 on our little call sheet was 34 counter. 34 counter every single time. Yeah. I didn't even have to look. I saw play 7, and I can't tell you how many times we ran that in a row and the defense didn't stop it. Right. So we just kept on running it. Once they stop it, then by all means we'll go to something else.
Football coaches are the worst about that. Oh, well, we had success with it. They're going to stop it now.
Yeah.
Well, keep doing it till they do, right?
Absolutely.
Keep throwing your fastball till they hit it.
So I'll use this as an example. Last night I was reffing a football game, Putnam City versus Stillwater. We were at Putnam City. 7-7 all the way through the first half. Good football game, really good football game. Yeah. And then Stillwater comes out in the second half, and they use this wildcat formation. And they drove the ball for legitimately 6 minutes in the third quarter, scored a touchdown. Get the ball back, stayed in the wildcat formation, drove it all the way down, scored a touchdown. Coach, I don't think that the actual legitimate quarterback played more than 5 snaps in the second half.
Yeah. And that is smart. That is smart coaching. They haven't stopped it, so why are we going to stop it? You know, it's a perfect example, and I think that that's going to work at any level that you play at. Yeah, totally agree. Hey, let's move to Baylor's game today, Coach. The good thing about it is, hey, Oklahoma State, they are thin, defensively very thin. Running back room, Ollie Gordon banged up. Offensive line banged up. Quarterback room thin, right? The one area on the field that that you are still very deep at is receiver. And the Baylor secondary, it's been just kind of one of those deals to where they've had a couple of returners here and there, but it's nothing great. Trust me. There is nothing about this Baylor team that is great. There's a lot of okay, right? I mean, and all the way back to your quarterback Sawyer Robertson. You talk about Alan Bowman not being able to beat out Gunnar Gundy or Garrett Rangel to start last year. Well, Sawyer Robertson couldn't beat out Blake Chafin. He couldn't beat out DeQuan Finn, who was from Toledo last year, the transfer in. He just kind of was handed the job by default by injury. So there is nothing that is overly impressive about Baylor. I don't mean that as disrespect to them. I just mean that to say, guys, man, put on your big boy pants today. Let's call a game offensively like we did last week. Let's figure out how to tackle, because if you do, you can win this game. I assure you. Now, you could also go and call a terrible game, Alan Bowman be erratic, not tackle, and get beat by 17 points too. But I assure you, this is a very winnable game.
It definitely is. I think that Baylor's kind of a team that reminds me of, I don't know, maybe if you go back to the Washington Redskins, if we're comparing the NFL, they're not good enough to beat you, but if you let them hang around, they're going to beat you. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not talking to this year's the Commanders team. This year's really, really good. But going back to the past few previous years when they're very average at best. I'm a big Dallas Cowboys fan, so that's why I'm using this as an example. I mean, you can go in to their place and beat them. You can do it. However, if you go in there and you play like dog crap, they're going to beat you. And there's no middle ground. You either play good and you win, or you play bad and you lose. Yeah, it sounds very simple, but that's the best way to describe a team like Baylor.
Mm-hmm. I think if both teams come out and play as well as they can today, it's going to be another game like we saw last week. I think these are two very evenly matched teams.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, if you go back and you look kind of like at what Baylor's done in the games that they've lost, the games that they've lost have been close.
Yes.
And it's
the Colorado
not
one was gut wrenching.
Exactly. Colorado's a good football team. Whether anybody wants to admit it or not, I know people have their personal feelings about Deion Sanders and all that stuff. Personally, I like him, but I don't. They're not a bad football team.
No.
No, and I can't remember the other team that they lost to. It was a close game, and it was a good team too. I don't remember who it was.
Baylor?
Yes.
I'll have to look up their schedule, but they have lost some close games, no doubt.
Yeah, and they weren't against bad teams either. That's what I'm trying to say. And I don't think Oklahoma State's really lost to a bad football team yet. But at the same time, they are kind of a bad football team. So it's like, what do you get from that? Because West Virginia, I think, is a lot better than what people thought.
They lost to Utah.
Yeah, Utah's not very good.
Lost to BYU and Iowa State.
Okay.
So they've kind of played the gauntlet of the Big 12.
Yeah, so they played good football teams.
And then they finally get to a Texas Tech who was playing good, and they kicked the crap out of them. So.
Exactly, yeah. Until last week when Baylor did what they did to Tech, I was really impressed with Tech, to be honest with you. They impressed me quite a bit. Iowa State has come out of nowhere.
Oh, really?
I mean,
see that?
They kind of shocked me. They did, just because I think last year they were very average at best. They just weren't very good. Another
young quarterback.
Another team that's kind of surprised me is Arizona State. I know they've lost a couple games recently, but they started out hot. They were impressive. They were impressive early. Arizona's kind of been a fart, I thought they were going to be a lot better.
Quarterback play goes.
Yeah, well, it kind of reminds me of Oklahoma State, to be honest with you. High expectations, and they don't really live up to them. So Kansas State's about what I thought they were going to be. Trying to think of who else. I mean, I don't really know.
Been very big disappointment.
Yeah, they've been horrible.
I think Kansas, UCF, Oklahoma State have been probably the three, and then Arizona have been, and then Utah. There's your five disappointments. And of course Utah you could trace back to losing Cam Rising, but this is a Baylor rushing attack that, I mean, they've got 3 or 4 pretty good running backs. I mean, but
one of them from Oklahoma State.
Yeah, right. Their quarterback can run the ball a little bit. I mean, you're not talking about Robertson's not going to run around and like be like Clint Chelf. I don't think anything like that. He's going to be more like what we saw Rangel do a couple times last week. He's going to keep the play alive long enough to find an open receiver. Those guys are very hard to defend at times.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, I think that what you're going to find with at least with Dominic Richardson, who's been at Oklahoma State. So if you're an Oklahoma State fan, you might be familiar with him. He's a physical guy. He's fast. He's got good feet. I don't think he's really a make-you-miss guy, but I think he's a little bit more of a physical presence, good build. He's a good running back. You know, I think that he left simply because he knew that Ollie was going to be the guy. You know, and that was probably the best decision for him. He's actually an Oklahoma City guy too. Played at McGinnis and was really, really good there. But yeah, I mean, he's not a bad running back, you know, and he was actually the guy I was watching the Colorado game when he fumbled in the end zone. That sucked. You know, that was rough. Yeah. But all that to be said, you know, I think that you're going to see, like you said, really several good running backs in a Baylor uniform today, and then their quarterback is kind of like he's kind of a mixture of Rangel and Bowman. If you ask me, exactly. He's not super great. He's not
a runner, but he is a scrambler.
Right, exactly. He's like Rangel in the way that he can extend a play, and he's kind of like
he can run if you need, but
right, and he's kind of like a Bowman in terms of he doesn't scare me, you know, like he's not a scary presence at quarterback, like you have with an Avery Johnson or you've got with you know, it was a Cam Rising, but he got hurt again. You know, those quarterbacks are a little bit more scary. We're going to see a really scary quarterback at the end of the season in Colorado with Shadur Sanders. The Baylor quarterback, he does not compare to any of those guys. You know, he's a very average, middle of the road quarterback.
Yeah. The thing about that Baylor's receivers too is that they're more impressive than the way they've played. You know, last week I was talking to Derek Smith, who's the play-by-play voice of Baylor women's basketball and then also baseball. He does the pregame show for the Baylor Network, and then he does the postgame show for the Baylor Network, so he's very, very well locked in. And the thing about the receiver corps is it's like their offense is evolving. Last year their offense was just terrible. It was boring. It was bland. They threw 5 touchdown passes to receivers total last year, right?
Yeah.
Their top receiver this year, Josh Cameron, has 7 touchdown receptions himself. And then they have a couple of fast guys like Ashton Hawkins and then Hal Presley. The guy that I'm very interested to watch today, though, that I think is going to be a nightmare for Oklahoma State is the Ole Miss transfer, Michael Trigg.
Yep.
And the reason why I say that is he's that hybrid guy that can – are you going to cover him with Kobe Hilton – or are you going to cover him with a safety? He's going to be a nightmare for OSU today. I think Michael Trigg is.
I agree 100%. You know, he's a nice athlete. He's a great athlete. You know, he kind of reminds me if you want to go if you want to compare him to somebody at Oklahoma State and how Oklahoma State should use this person is Rashad Owens. He's just
great comparison.
Physical presence. You know, you really don't know how to guard him or who to guard him with. You know what I'm saying? I think that those two are very comparable.
Remember Jace Amari from Texas Tech?
Yes,
about 10 years ago. It reminds me of him too.
Yeah.
That type of guy.
Yeah.
Or the guy for the Chiefs.
Kelsey.
Travis Kelsey. That kind of guy.
Yeah. I just used Rashad Owens because that's who I figured the people that are listening are most familiar with. Yeah. You know, we've talked a ton about the offense. Let's talk about the defense, man. The defense is bad. Our defense is bad.
It starts with no pass rush. That's where it starts.
Right.
I mean, if you evaluate film, it's like if you just can alter the quarterback at all, it's going to make a huge difference.
Exactly. You know, and I understand that you lose a Colin Oliver and you lose a Nick Martin, and now you're down a Trey Rucker. Yeah. Trey Rucker. Is he playing today? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I know Cameron Epps is out with a ACL.
Torn ACL. He's done too. Yeah, I mean, the injuries aren't doing us any favor. They had mentioned something about Trey Rucker possibly being available, but I never heard for sure. I know you lose some of your top defensive guys, but I'm telling you, is speaking from experience, and I didn't do this at the Division I level. I did it at the high school level. A pass rush isn't a super hard concept. It's really not a super hard thing to do. Yes, but for putting pressure on a quarterback.
It's back. Trey Rucker will play today. Yes.
That's good. That's huge.
That is huge because he's going to have to be on Michael Trigg.
Yeah. So there's your guy. There's your guy to guard him because
that makes me feel better.
Just as big and just as physical. I think you can also use a Kendall Daniels to cover him, who has a little bit more experience in terms of the secondary. Because he's still. I mean, I think he's done an okay job of moving to linebacker, and I do think that's his best possible position to play at the next level is linebacker, just with big
Rucker?
Physical. No. Kendall Daniels.
Yeah. Defensive end, maybe.
If he puts some weight on, he's a big guy. Yeah, he's a big guy. But again, going back to that, I don't think putting pressure on a quarterback is really not a hard thing to do, especially if you have the right scheme to do it, because it can't just be an end going around a tackle. It can't be. You have to have your end take a B gap every once in a while. You have to have crossers. You have to have guys coming off the edge with a blitz. I would like to, I'd like to see a little bit of maybe a corner blitz or a safety blitz or something that's a little bit more creative,
that's what Nardo's known for, is creative blitz packages. They were very creative last year. I don't know where
has it been this year?
Yeah, right. It's crazy.
It's just been a very standard, and that's I
agree.
That's the other frustrating thing is like you sit down. If I were to sit down in a room with Brian Nardo, the first thing that I would ask him is, where did your creativity go?
Yeah, right.
I would love to sit with both offensive
I'm glad you've at least seen it before, right? I mean,
yes. I'd ask the same question to both coordinators. Like, where is your creativity? Like, why are we in such a standard, most boring, dry offense and defense that I've ever seen? Because you have the exact same team that you had last year.
Yes.
Use what you had last year.
Minus Xavier Benson.
Yeah, use what you had last year and add on to it, because I promise you, they can retain it all. They ran it all for a full year. You add a couple more things in there, they're going to be able to retain it. It's not like you're coming in as a brand new offensive or defensive coordinator and they're having to learn a whole new system.
Right.
Add on to your system, because the game evolves, coaches evolve, coaches learn, and good coaches are going back and looking. I struggled with Oklahoma State last year. What did they do to beat me? I'm going to adjust to that. I'm going to try and figure that stuff out. So be ahead of the game. Yes. Try to figure something else out.
How about this? If it's not working, try something else. I don't care what it is.
Exactly.
That's kind of where I'm at. I mean, okay, that's not working. So I don't need to know a whole lot about football to try to figure out something, to try something else.
Right. I feel like our two coordinators are making it too easy for the other opposing coordinators to figure things out. I really do.
I think that's very fair.
I don't think that there's a whole lot. If I'm in Baylor's practice this whole week, and if I'm coaching, I don't think that there's a whole lot that I'm like, hey guys, man, we really have to key on this, because if we don't do this, this is going to happen. Mm-hmm. I think it's the most standard brand of football that you can play.
I don't think last week OSU's offense was.
No, right, but I'm using the 6 prior games. I was really impressed with what Casey Dunn did last week. Has done for the full season? Absolutely not. Last week does not make up for the 6 previous games where you stunk it up. I mean, just horrendous. Yeah. And I hope and pray that is not enough for him to keep his job at the end of this season. I really don't, because like I said, he needs to go be a coordinator somewhere where they can, I don't even know, somewhere that's a very average football program. And right now that's hard for me to say, because college football is insane. Like, I'm watching Oklahoma beat Ole Miss right now. That makes no sense. But
Jackson Dart is massively overrated, by the way.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah. I don't think he's going to be a great NFL quarterback. I think he'll be drafted. I think he'll be more like a Spencer Rattler, who, if you've watched him the past couple of weeks, he's looked like dog crap. I mean, he's looked horrendous playing for the Saints. But that's just to use him as an example. I think that's going to be what Jackson Dart is. This year's quarterback class is not very good, in my opinion. I don't think there's a whole lot. Shadur Sanders is pretty talented. Outside of that,
I'll wait to on my judgment on Coach Prime until his son's not the quarterback. I think he's had a built-in advantage because we've seen it right here at OSU, man. I mean, we saw it with Jake Retzloff at BYU. We've seen it at Utah, okay? Literally, your quarterback play can determine how your entire season's going to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that I think that he's going to bring in somebody that's going to be not just as talented, but pretty dang talented. I think he's a great recruiter. I think what he's done up to this point with the University of Colorado is extremely impressive because they went from winning 0 games to winning 4 games, and now they're going to be a bowl eligible team.
Yeah.
That's a really hard thing to do. And
he's done the easy part, though. I mean, he's done the part like that Bob Simmons did, Les Miles did at OSU. That's the easy part. The hard part is what Mike Gundy has done, and that is to continue to do it over like 10 years.
Right, but does he stay at Colorado for 10 years?
That's my point.
Does he stay for maybe a couple more years? Maybe. I've seen interviews where they've talked to him about potentially being an NFL coach, and he's like, man, I don't want to deal with that. He likes the relationship with the kids and stuff like that.
Yeah, because he's a celebrity to him. He won't be a celebrity to NFL guys.
Exactly.
So his whole gig won't work with those guys.
Right. And I don't have any issue with that. I really don't.
I have none.
I think
zero.
that it actually plays greatly to his advantage.
There's nothing immoral about it. Why would I have a problem with it? Do what you got to do to win, man.
Well, in terms of recruiting, he's a great recruiter, and it's because of who he is. Who wouldn't want to go and play for somebody that's.
And bottom line, he's a winner. He is a winner. Deion Sanders thinks like a winner.
Absolutely.
He's a champion in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And his coaching shows that. Is there a sense of arrogance there? Yes. If I was as good of an athlete as he was, I probably would be a little arrogant myself. I mean, just to be honest with you,
yeah.
I mean, he was one of the greatest NFL players to play the game, and he was actually a really good Major League Baseball player too.
All those guys are arrogant. It's just some of them are able to figure out a way to make it to where it doesn't look like they're arrogant to other people. When I say arrogant, what I mean is they think they're better than everybody else on earth when it comes to competition. They think they're going to win every single time. They have that arrogant outlook towards things. Now, do they look? Now, some people that comes off differently in terms of the way that they act. Deion Sanders, it comes off like he acts arrogantly, like other people are arrogant in the way they think, but then they don't act arrogantly, if that makes sense to you. I don't know if that can probably confused everybody there. You can kind of act humble, but still have that same, like Les Miles would be a perfect case scenario. Very arrogant, stubborn, arrogant, but yet he comes off as this real humble, kind person, right?
Yeah, I think, and what Blanket said it perfectly. He said prime is prime. That's 100. That's who he is. What you see is what you get, and that's what I respect about him.
Yep.
And I think that's what his players respect about him. He's not two different people. He's the same with the media as he is with the players. And I respect the heck out of that, and I think that plays greatly to his advantage. And I think that's why he's found success at the college level. And I think he's going to continue to find success at the college level. I think that if there is a better opportunity than Colorado, which I'm sure there will be within the next few years, that opens itself and presents itself, if I was him, I would jump at that opportunity. Yeah. What I would like to see personally, this is selfish, and I don't know if this is ever going to happen, but I would like to see that Florida State job open up and him go back to Florida State. I think that'd be awesome. Because I think he fits Florida State. Not only did he play there, but I think if he brings the sunglasses and he brings his presence and things like that, that's going to light Tallahassee up. I mean, that's going to be really, really cool. I would love to see that happen. And with how bad they've been this year, I wouldn't be surprised to see their head coach canned.
They were good last year, though.
I know.
One bad year and you're gone. That's tough, man.
He's won one game, though. They've won one game this year.
It's been bad. That's a dilemma. I mean, but hell, they should have been in the playoffs last year, though.
Yeah, but if you look at what, let's look at Coach O at
LSU.
He had one bad year and they canned him, and they lost 15 guys.
But they had a good one in the back pocket.
Yeah, they did. But
Of course, now if you think Prime is your guy and you have him in your back pocket, fine.
why in my mind that's like a fairy tale ending in my opinion. You go back to where you played and you bring Florida State back to what it should be and used to be. Last year they were super impressive, but this year they've been a complete disappointment.
Yeah.
In my mind, I think that they know they could go get him. And I also think that that's where he would want to go. I think he would love to go back to Florida State. That would be a really cool thing to see, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Hey, Chase, what are some of your keys to today's game? I think I've said this several different times. I think this is as pedestrian of a team in Baylor as Oklahoma State is. I don't mean that to be any kind of knock or rap. I just think it just kind of is what it is. These are just two very average teams. Now, Baylor obviously played very, very well last week, but it wouldn't surprise OSU fans or any other fans around the Big 12 if OSU also had that one week to where all of a sudden Alan Bowman got hot, Ollie Gordon was running, and Oklahoma State, everything just clicked, and Oklahoma State scored a bunch of points. That 1 week, right? I mean, we kind of had it last week. So, I mean, you could make the case that, yes, Baylor is what they are. Last week was an aberration. We will see today. But what are your keys to a very winnable game today?
You've got to tackle. First off,
Yes.
you have to tackle. You've got to find a way to establish the ground game again with Alan Bowman as your quarterback. You've got to find a way to get Ollie going.
How much do you run Bowman today?
Run Bowman?
Yes.
I would say realistically 7-8 times.
Yeah.
How many times do I think they need to run it for him to win? Or I'm sorry, how much does he need to run it for them to win? I would say 10 to 12. To be honest with you, just to show that there's something there. Do I think that they're going to do that? No. But at the same time, you've got to establish Ollie early. If you do that and you get him going, you get 50, 60, 70 yards in that first quarter. Please don't do what you did against Kansas State and hand him the ball 3 times the rest of the game. Just feed him.
Unless he's not healthy. He's struggling with health.
Yeah. And at this point, I respect if they knock if they want to win, let him carry the ball. If they're more concerned, and I have no problem with this, if they're more concerned about his health and his longevity and NFL career and stuff like that, don't run him as much. Right. If he's not feeling good, because at this point, like I said, you've got nothing to play for. Preserve his body and do what's best for the kid, in my opinion. But at the same time, I think you've got to establish him early, and if he feels good, get him the ball. You also have to find a way to get Rashad Owens, and you have to get Brennan Presley involved. Rashad Owens has been he has not been a disappointment, but in terms of the scheme and getting him the ball, that has been a major disappointment this season. He has not touched the ball enough. He's a great receiver, and he has not gotten the ball enough.
I agree.
I think that Deshaun Stribling needs to get the ball more. There's so many weapons at the receiver position that they have. They've got to find a way to get him the ball, not just on a pass. Get them involved in the run game. Do something a little crazy. Do some reverses. Put Rashad Owens, put Brennan Presley in the backfield with Ollie, or the freshman running back. I'd love to see him play. I forgot his name. Rodney
Fields, yeah.
Thank you. I would love to see him get quite a few snaps, especially if Ollie's not healthy. That's your number 2 back. There's a lot of things that they have to do, but it's going to come down to tackling and offensive scheme in terms of winning this football game.
That's a good way to put it. I want to see a lot more 2-back with Brennan Presley in the backfield. I want to see Brennan Presley and Ollie. I want to see Rodney Fields and Ollie. I want to see Rodney Fields and Brennan. And I want to see a 2-way go to where that backside defensive end we have an ability to make him pay, whether it be with your second running back or with your quarterback pulling the ball like we saw Alan Bowman do a couple of times last week. So I want to see more 2-back. I want to see Alan Bowman. I want to see that zone away where Alan Bowman can pull. So, like that first touchdown last week, Oklahoma State shifted that unbalanced, but then they ran zone left and then ran Ollie Gordon back to the right. That's zone away concept. I want to see more of that because that's like just kind of that counterflow type scheme. That's where Oklahoma State's offensive line and Ollie Gordon are at their best. So I think I want to see a game plan revolving around that. I want to see Josh Ford throwing the ball in the middle of the field. I want to see Rashad Owens throwing the ball in the middle of the field. I want to see 4 or 5 screens, slip screens, bubble screens, quick screens, you name it, to Brennan Presley. I want to see probably 4 or 5 slants to Des dribbling, maybe 2 or 3 jump balls, and then just a hodgepodge of whatever off of all of that to the rest of the receivers, whether it be Lofton or Shetron or whoever else may be. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I don't necessarily need to see sacks on Sawyer Robertson, but keep him in the pocket and make him just feel uncomfortable. If you make things uncomfortable on him, he will be way less accurate. This is not a guy, he's more of your game manager type guy if you can keep him pinned in like that. And then just good tight coverage and, like you said, the tackle. I think this is a team in Baylor that you can tackle. So those would be my keys. Yeah,
and don't forget motion on the offense.
Yes.
That's a huge part.
Totally agree.
Some sort of creativity, even pre-snap. Get guys moving around, get the defense really thinking, and because when you get the defense thinking and stuff like that, usually that's going to lead to a dropped coverage at some point, sometime, somewhere. And if it's not a dropped coverage, it's going to be somebody that should be accounting for run that's more focused on pass.
Yeah.
So motion every single play if you have to. That's perfectly fine because, like I said, that's going to lead to defensive mistakes. Me being more of a defensive guy, it was really hard for me to read an offense when there was so many things going on, where there are so many people moving around.
You can't run anything because you're just trying to get lined down right.
Right, because I'm thinking pre-snap. I've only got a tackle here. I've got a 2-back set. This 2-back comes and is now a sniffer back or an H-back that is lined up right outside the tackle. So now I'm having to change my split because I'm hitting a different gap. There's so many things that go into it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm coming from a defensive end perspective because that's where I played. I'm having to change splits. I'm having to really think, okay, am I in a 5 technique? Am I in an 8? Am I in a 6-eye? What am I in? Yeah. And then do I go A gap, B gap, C gap? Where am I going? And that's just the defensive end, which I'm going to be honest, those guys, and I'm knocking on myself too. Those guys aren't very smart. They know pass rush. They know pass rush, and they know which gap to hit.
In terms of the scheme they're given.
Exactly.
You're not given the most complicated scheme. Yeah.
No, your job is really simple, but it's a very selfless position. That's why I really like Colin Oliver. I think he did a great job of that when he played. Just spilling stuff to linebackers, spilling stuff to safeties and stuff like that. It's a selfless position, but I like it. It was fun for me to play. But coming from that perspective, I can't even imagine what's going through a linebacker's mind when they're seeing all this motion and, pre-snap, I'm seeing
especially when it's Presley and he's a nightmare to cover to begin with.
Well, and he's just really fast.
Yes.
He moves at a really quick pace. So as soon as you see that motion, your mind starts to wander and then the ball snaps and you're like, oh frick, and now you just got to play football. But
hey, what'd you think about that walk-off last night, huh?
That was sick. That was so impressive. Freddie,
you're a Dodgers fan. You enjoyed it.
It could not have happened to a better guy. I love Freddie, man. Awesome. Freddie's a good dude. So
that's awesome. Okay, man. I appreciate it, Coach.
Absolutely.
We're gonna get out of here. So hey, come back for post-game show. Hopefully, of course, we have World Series tonight on my main site, Dodgers Daily. I have a pregame for the World Series game and a post-game. So we may have a post-game live with this. We may not. It's going to largely depend on how the football game goes and then the timing of the World Series and all that. We may just throw together a show tomorrow. May have a highlight show this week, kind of like we've been doing this year. If it's worth going back and looking at, I'll do it. But if it's one of those where I don't even want to put my eyeballs on it again, screw it. I ain't doing a highlight show, right? So
there's about a 50-50 chance of either one.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the best suggestion I could give you, if you like the content here on O State Daily, just turn on your notifications. That way when we do release something or go live like this, you will get notified and you will know about it. So, hey, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We've had a great crowd today. Chase, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
And until next time, go Pokes.